Hi, everybody. I'm Tyler, if you want to put a face to a name. I'm going to be talking about the John Maxwell series. And if you're in the military, you might have heard of John Maxwell or maybe been to one of his briefings. But he's got a couple different series. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the executive series, podcast 258, When Leaders Live Out Their Lives, that outlines how to lead by living by your core values. So essentially, your core values govern your behavior, and your team is able to see consistency when you routinely act in accordance with your personal beliefs. It also gives some clarity in your decision making, and we see this sometimes with commanders when they're issuing punishment, for example. They always want to be fair but proportional, and they want to be consistent from day one to the last day of their command. It gives some steps on how to do that. First, you need to identify your values, determine what those values look like when they're acted on. And we talk about the Air Force core value of integrity first, for example, looks like doing the right thing even when no one's watching. It's kind of cliche, but it helps to visualize. And then finally, taking some time at the end of the day to reflect on those and determine what went right and what went wrong. The next one I'm going to talk about is episode 331, The Power of Consistency. It outlines why consistency in leadership is important. It allows you to build trust and credibility with your teammates. It establishes expectations. It drives engagement. And then leadership is contagious. When the people you supervise see you acting in a consistent manner, they're also more likely to act consistently. It also reduces fear and uncertainty. So employees are more likely to bring things to your attention that are important. It gives some examples of what happens when you have leadership inconsistency. So, how emotion can erode confidence and show unpredictability. And then it gives a good example of the coffee cup on the secretary's desk, if you've heard of it. When the boss comes in and he's in a bad mood, she puts a red cup on the desk. And then when he's in a good mood, she puts the green cup on the desk. And that basically dictates how the entire office functions based on a coffee cup, which is obviously not how business works. And then the final episode I'm going to talk about is a standalone. It's called How to Intentionally Grow People on Your Team. It basically outlines personnel development. So, have a game plan, put yourself in the picture so that people can see you implement the game plan, then get a close coalition of people that also can easily follow it. And that's similar to my old reliable John Cotter's 8-step change management policy, where step 2 is building a guiding coalition. And we see this sometimes with the military when we talk about the top 3. The commander usually has a vision, and then it's the job of the chief and the first shirt to help the rest of the unit to implement that. Then it goes on to talk about solidifying that culture with training, reflection, discussions, and getting to know your people, because it allows you to put people where their strengths play best. And then, talks about giving smart deadlines and giving some, high tasks, but setting firm expectations that people can achieve and allow them to be their best selves. And I like this podcast because it's pretty short. If you have 10 or 15 minutes and you want to listen to something on the way to work, it's a pretty good one, and it's pretty straight and to the point. So that's all I got. Thanks.